So I'm really excited to talk with Brian today. We first learned about Brian's plan when we were down at his ranch hunting. We saw a notebook on the table full of scribbles. And so, of course, we had to ask him, and he wouldn't leave to look at the cattle without it. So, of course, we had to ask him, what that notebook contained.
Yes, yeah. I remember that weekend that we were there with him. It was a lot of fun. We spent hours looking at his cows, and then the next day he took us deer hunting, which was a lot of fun. We got to shoot some pretty nice deer down there.
We did. I think what I like most about the hunting aspect was when we were in the stands or, in the spots that he put us, all of his, at least where I was, all of his heifers were just kind of roaming about under the stands, would come up and kind of be around you. I just thought that was really cool.
You're right. It was. It was a lot of fun, and he has a really neat ranch.
I'm excited to talk to him and learn about how he's been patient all these years. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
In today's episode, we'll be talking with Brian Brett from Brett Ranch. Brian and his wife Suzanne have been raising Longhorns near Brownwood, Texas for almost 10 years. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. Would you mind taking a second and telling everybody a little bit about Brett Ranch?
You bet. We have 800 acres in Brownwood. It first started as a deer hunting operation for us. It's high fence, and we had the ranch for roughly 10 years, and grass and weeds and all kinds of things were growing uncontrollably, and we had a fire, and it made me realize we need some lawnmowers. And I started looking into cows. We don't live on the ranch, so that's what got me studying how can I do this independently, and that's where I came across Longhorns. And I bought 3, and 3 quickly became 20, which became 50, which became 80, and that was 2009, so we've had a lot of fun with it ever since.
So we hear from a lot of people when we talk with them about how they got started in Longhorns that they have a quote-unquote starter herd. So when you first got started, did you have a starter herd before realizing that you wanted to go down kind of a different path?
I did. And it was a really funny story. I had 2 cows and 1 bull, as if I really needed a bull for 2 cows. And I was so proud. Me and 2 of one brother and 1 friend, we moved this bull through 2 gates and into a different pasture. And within 5 minutes, I saw this bull jump 2 fences, never touched a wire, and was right back where we started from. So it's a pretty funny story to watch that we were not very good at this, and this bull that we just bought was quite athletic.
So how much time passed between your starter herd and when you decided that you were going to hash out your plan?
That's a really good question. I think I started going to many of the sales and visiting with a lot of people. When I mentioned our first foray into this was lawnmowers. I needed something to eat grass independently and stay alive. And then when you go to a sale and you start seeing the horn shapes, the body size, the conformation, the genetics, that's when it really started to weigh on me that we needed to make some changes.
So roughly how many sales had you attended before you realized you needed to develop a plan?
That's a great question. I remember it like it was yesterday. We probably went a whole spring worth, and then it was the next year's legacy. And this will involve you guys. It's kind of a funny story. One of the things I looked at critically about my herd was I had a great bull, Jamster, and I had 10 to 20 cows. And the cows were just okay. And when I went to that legacy sale, I can't even tell you what year it was. It was one of the times it was in Richardson, and you guys had just created a pamphlet for John Helm. Do you guys remember that? It was a trifold, or it was actually a booklet, and it had his entire herd in this booklet. And I thought, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And as I was paging through this booklet, the one thing I realized I didn't have was cow power. I had an average to above average bull and below average cows, and I was expecting miracles and realized that just doesn't happen. So that's when I realized I need to do something. And as I paged through that pamphlet booklet, I found 2 cows, 4 cows actually, on John Helm's site, and we started talking about those. That happened to be, it ended up being Helm Laura's Light Mocha and Helm's Laura's Mercy. And those 2 cows both, which I bought at, I think, a year and a couple of months old, both ended up over 90 inches. So really got lucky that first John worked with me, that we could find a price, and that I was lucky enough to select those 2 cows that had such a success path.
Do you still have both of those cows now?
I sold both of them. They were 2 of my greatest accomplishments, that I didn't pay a lot for them, and I got a lot for them. We sold Mercy at, I believe that was one of the legacies, for $8, and then we sold Mocha at another $60. So really look back on that as our greatest success, and put us on a path. I had several babies, many offspring from Light Mocha in particular, and then I went down a path of finding replacements for them, and that's where I came across Triple T Jam and Jenny, and eventually Awesome Nova. So as I look back in time, most of my herd, the stronger genetics, the 90-inch genetics, are Mocha, Jenny, Nova, and most recently I bought AM Rose's Ruby, who just crossed 90. So I've been pretty fortunate that I'm taking those bloodlines, trying to get bulls and females from them, and then intertwining those genetics into the herd.
So you said when you first flipped through the Helm Cattle Company booklet that you picked out 4 cows. Would you be willing to tell us who the 2 were that you didn't purchase and how they're doing today?
John kept both of them. He had full sisters to, there was Dark Mocha and Light Mocha, and there was Mercy, and I forget the other one's name. David Mills sold her to, I'm going to mess up the name. I think Brittany
Gentry?
I don't know. Yes, that's it. She owns it. She just bought the other sister of Mercy from David Mills. So it was funny. I'm picking between 2 full sisters, and one of them was a Jamaicanism daughter, and one of them was a top caliber daughter. But they both had Wiregrass Laura as the dam, and that, again, just got lucky in picking her and finding out that she was quite the producer.
Sounds like you got a good eye.
Well, luck has a lot to do with it, but yes, I spend a lot of time with these things, and you get to know what you really like. To me, I buy genetics, I buy a pedigree, but I really spend a lot of time looking at the horn set, and what I think that's going to do. It has such a bearing on success and value.
For sure. What were the first steps that you took when setting up your plan or your future herd?
I will tell you early on, as you guys know, I did a lot with Jamaicanism. He was a bull that was the sire of the bull I had, and I just liked so much of what he contributed, both female and male. Rarely do you find a bull that has such strength across, some produce better females than males and some produce better bulls than heifers. And he was one that had success on both sides. And as I studied him more and more, I loved his color, loved his horn set. And one thing that I found out about him, he produced late bloomers, both in males and females. So in a lot of situations, people would have 1 and 2 and almost even up to 3 years old pedigree or offspring progeny from Jamaicism, and they hadn't done anything yet. So I went around collecting them because I knew they were roughly 30 to 48 months is when they really kicked it into gear. And I did really well with studying that and learning that I really want Jamaicism to be the backbone of my herd.
So let's back up just a little bit and kind of talk a little bit more about the plan. So, Jamaicism is kind of the backbone, right? But what brought you to realizing that you needed a plan? Like I've seen your scribblings before in your notebook, right? Like I know that you have this thing down to a T. So like when did it hit you, or what made you decide that you needed to write all this out and plan all these future generations and everything instead of just maybe purchasing a cow at a sale that you thought was pretty or had a nice horn set or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, you're right. I scribble and take notes and keep track of just about everything. But I would tell you, I wanted to try. Nobody had really tried line breeding Jamaicism, and that's really what I wanted to do. I had a Jamaicism son for a bull. I had just recently bought 5 or 6 Jamaicism daughters, so that was the inception of the plan. It's like, okay, this is either going to be really good or really not good. And nobody had tried it. So I thought, how am I going to make a name for myself or get noticed at the time, JP Rio Grande was everything in the industry when I first started. And I didn't want to use that because everybody had it. And I had to figure out, what do you do differently? So that's what made me study genetics. Danny Phillips became a friend. I would always look at pictures. He owned Jamaicism at the time. And I actually ended up going to see him at one point with you, as a matter of fact, to his place to get to see him in person. But that's what got me on the path. It's like, what can I do in this industry that hadn't been done before, that people might not have noticed, that I want to do something with? And that was line breeding Jamaicism. It was me going to find great offspring of his that were affordable, and that people hadn't realized the possible potential of that animal, and I did.
So how many generations does your plan cover?
3 from this point. And it's the baseline of, I never did get any progeny from Mercy, but I did from Mocha. So I believe I have 6 daughters of hers in my herd. I have 1 son that I'm still using. Had 2. I had 1 by Tough and Light Mocha, and I have 1 by Drag Iron and Light Mocha. That is Mr. Wright, and he has great body size, great color, and he's going to end up being, I think, somewhere in the mid-80s. He is fabulous for conformation. He is great for body size, very correct. I have those daughters I mentioned. I'm not crossing those. So I needed other bulls, and that's where Jim and Jenny was my next success cow. And I was able to get 4 from her and 2 bulls. One of these bulls is my current bull called Crackerjack, and he is a Jam and Jenny son. Jam and Jenny was also a Jamaicism daughter. She is 92 inches. Mercy, or Mocha, ended up being 96 inches, and I've heard rumors that she's at 99 now. So now I had 4 daughters from Jenny. I sold 2, I still have 2, and I have their full brother, Crackerjack. So now the plan is, can I use the bull Crackerjack on Mocha daughters? The answer is yes. And then use Mr. Right, a Mocha son, on Jenny daughters. So that's the plan. And then, fast forward a little bit, I have Awesome Nova, who I got from the crafts, who I really, really like. That is Cowboy Up over Lady Di. Lady Di goes back to Poco Lady. Love those genetics. Awesome Nova had the greatest horn set that I've ever seen at roughly 12 months, and I was like, that's what I'm looking for. So I now have 6 daughters from Awesome Nova and 2 bulls. So the plan really is, how do you incorporate, it's somewhat like braiding hair. How do you intertwine Mocha genetics, Jenny genetics, and Awesome Nova genetics? And that's really what this plan is. You got to have daughters from each and sons from each, and pastures to keep them separate, but you cross breed those. That too complicated?
No, not at all. I'm curious though, how far out is that crossbreeding? How long are you going to have to wait, I guess, is my question, because I know it takes a lot of patience.
Seems like forever. We've just done the first cross with Crackerjack and Mocha daughters. They should be having calves in the next 2 to 3 months. So that's going to be really fun. I'm growing up 2 Awesome Nova bulls. One is probably a year and a half, and the other one is 6 months. I also purchased a second Jam and Jenny son, who's crossed with Houdini. So that's a 95 by 92 inch pedigreed bull, and I'm seeing what he's all about. So really from a bull standpoint, I've got Mr. Right, who is drag iron over light Mocha. I've got Jungle Jim, who is Houdini over Jam and Jenny. And I've got Crackerjack, who is rurally screwed over Jam and Jenny. I have Supernova, who is Mr. Right over Awesome Nova. So there you have Mr. Right goes back to light Mocha. So there I've mixed light Mocha and Nova already, and that's been something I've been trying to do for a long time. So that's really generation 1. And now I can take Supernova and apply them to some of these other crossings. I have one other bull. It's Cruisin' Tango, which is a 50-50 son, and crossed with Awesome Nova. So I try and get a little bit of an outcross on one side of it, and then one of the strong daughters on the maternal side that we've been talking about.
So I feel like you've already answered this, but I just want to make sure we're not, overlooking anything. So besides what you've given us already, is there anything else that your plan is based on before we ask you some questions about your research and data and everything?
It takes a special female to become part of this intertwining. You have to feel like they add the color, the conformation, and the horn set that you want more of in your herd. I probably have 50 cows, but I'm really concentrating on 5 or 6 that make this cut to where I want to use them on the female side and particularly the bull side. So it doesn't guarantee that that's how it's going to happen, but I've been pretty lucky so far with the production from these, and every one of them is a 90-inch female. So the idea to go further is horn set, conformation, color, and then the marketability of 90-inch genetics.
You do a crazy amount of research. What type of ongoing research are you doing that goes into your plan?
I'm always fascinated by the success of other people. There are so many things I've looked back historically, and thank God for Arrowhead so that I can I can delve into a million pedigrees, and you guys for creating that and working with Craig on it. I'm always trying to find crosses that mix. Jamaicaism crosses with Winchester. Jamaicaism crosses with mile marker. Those are historical and old. Concealed weapon and Tejas stars, a fairly famous cross. You know, you can go back. When you start seeing, I love going to a cow, looking at progeny, finding the best ones and saying, who is the dam? Who did they cross JP Rio on to get that success? And I do that a lot. And you finally realize when you have a great cow, and let's face it, there's tons of them out there that are deeper into production and have 5 to 10 progeny, you can really look at and say, wow, it crossed better with this bull than with this bull. And wow, they hit on it twice. Then it becomes not a coincidence. So I spend a lot of time looking at what crosses best with a particular bloodline and a particular cow. I always say that a birth is a lightning strike through the pedigree. You typically can breed a cow the same way 10 times and you're going to get 10 different results. The more consistent they are, those are the cows you really want to concentrate on.
Along with keeping track of crossbreeding, what data do you collect that keeps you on course with your plans?
You guys ask good questions. I do. I am kind of a nerd at heart. Most people wouldn't realize that. Every time I measure the herd, I use Dow goods. And a lot of people don't like Dow goods. I think it's fantastic because what I do is I already know before I measure my entire herd, I know if they hit, I'll give you an example. If you have cow A and you measure A, I already have it run through Dow goods for that day we're measuring. And if that cow measures 80, I'll know I already did the calculations for what that cow should measure to have maintained the same projection from the previous time I measured her. We typically only measure twice a year. So imagine doing this in September and March. So I measured them in September and got a projection, let's say 82. And now it's March. I measure again, and I know what does this cow have to measure today to project to 82 again. And at that point, if she measures 79 and a half, that means she went down. If she measures 80 3/4, that's a cow that's moving forward and advancing. Quite often when they don't match up, it's because their horn set changed or they started swinging up or swinging forward, but it tells me a lot. And then by the time I'm done, then after I measure, I go recalculate Dow goods again for every one, and I can tell you, did it go forward from the last time or backwards? I have them ranked by age, by cow, who grew the most per inch, per month from the last time we measured with the same aged cows for the 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14s, 13s. So I know who's growing, who's not. Does some of them need multi-min? Are some of them not eating well? Are their horns changing? Constantly looking and evaluating what the differences are.
So what do you do with those cows that aren't reaching their projection?
I either discount them and put them for sale. Sometimes as difficult as it is, you have to be a merciless culler. If they're not meeting the projections that I want, I typically don't keep them very long.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast. We've talked a lot about your data and research and your plans, so here's kind of a curveball of a question. Is it hard not to get excited? is it hard when you're at a sale, you're sitting there and, something comes into the ring that you feel drawn towards, you really like, but, you've obviously done the research and it doesn't fit with your plan?
I love to buy cows. And I think that's something that everybody in business suffers from. I had to curtail myself at some point in time that I don't need anymore in that regard. So typically when I go to a sale, I have 5 or 6 marked that I need to look at, to study further, because you can't fall in love with a picture. You got to see what they look like in person. So I typically go with that intentions, and I've done my homework before I show up. And sometimes I'm surprised, good and bad, when I do show up at a sale. But I try not to, what's the word I'm looking for, spontaneous. I try not to get too carried away in a sale and start buying things that I know I'll regret later.
So once you had your plan in place, how long did you stick with it before making adjustments?
I think I'm still on it. You make adjustments based on other cows that I feel like have qualified to be a part of the intertwining, or a successful baby or bull, a calf, heifer or bull, that I feel like from one of those super cows of mine that I think are super cows, when I get a bull from them, all of a sudden that gives me additional possibilities. If they keep having females, which would be fine with me, that adds to the stable and the future. But a bull calf from one of these super cows makes me think another generation ahead, and who do I want to cross that bull on from these same super cows, females.
So when you sell an animal, do you always replenish the herd with a different animal, or do you try to stay at a certain number?
No, I do try. And what I have done, and there are several different ways to do this. A lot of people have a super cow and they sell the babies off every year. I don't do that. If I am getting the production I'm looking for and I have a basis in that animal, I paid money for them, I try and get females or calves on the ground, and then within a short period of time, a couple of years, 2 to 4 years, then I can sell that animal back before they've aged too much, and now, to try and reduce the cost I have outstanding and start working with my own genetics.
With the plan that you have and what we've talked about, what role does marketing play in that plan? Quite a bit. You want people to know who you are. Facebook is so fabulous. Part of my obsession with Longhorns are, I love to take pictures. And I feel like Longhorn people like to look at Longhorn pictures. So, one of the things I try and do at least once or twice a month is post an update with pictures of my herd. And if you do that, you create a following. So to me, that's marketing. The website that you guys have is phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because you guys are here. In fact, I have a friend that just got into the business and they were asking about the website. And they were like, it seems like everybody has the same kind. I was like, yes, there's a reason for that. That's so good. If I put everything in from breeding, measurements, notes, observed breeding, everything on your website. And it does the work of marketing for you when you're sleeping. But I love Facebook. I love posting pictures. The Longhorn community loves, 2 or 3 or 4 of the groups that everybody looks at, and you're really able to get your name out there and some of your cows and animals.
So when we started off the podcast, you told us about how your ranch started off as a whitetail property. Does the fact that you're also familiar with the whitetail breeding industry, did that have any effect on your plan?
Absolutely. The beauty of that was it got me started in being able to look at pedigrees, line breeding. Line breeding is very popular in whitetails. It got me to understand nutrition. It made me understand how the whitetail community uses a term called anchor doe. An anchor doe it can either be the mother or grandmother on the maternal side. And they talk about how important that anchor doe is to the success of progeny. And the Longhorn folks don't talk about that much. They realize how important the maternal and dam side genetics are, but the whitetail people live by that religiously on that anchor doe. And that has really helped me because I try and find 2 generations in a row of success on the maternal dam side before they can ever be on part of my super cow list. So it really helped.
That makes sense. So Jamie and I helped you a while back and noticed that you added some new pages to your website. One of them is called All Time Favorites, and then another one is called Reference. What made you decide to create those and make them public on your site?
Hey, you guys don't miss anything. Reference was my love affair with certain animals. Actually, it's my favorite, what is it called? My favorite animals. I also have Reference, which is all my old animals that I've sold. But I think I have all-time favorites. And that's really my love affair with many of the industry bulls and cows that I have admired that were even in everybody else's herds, with some of my own commentary on what they mean to me or what I saw them cross with. It's also for my own family as they get into it and they try and keep up with where my head is. They can look at those pages as I talk about different things and they can follow. And then
so you make them do their homework.
And then there's the notes section, and I talk about things, and it's the same reason. It's really for anybody that wants to learn from the mistakes and the things that I'm doing. But it's really a trail of breadcrumbs for my kids to be able to say, oh, here's why he does that. Oh, here's what he does at this time of year. Oh, you got lice. Why don't we put these out? And what do you put out? How do you grow food plot? What tools do you need? What do you do with measurements, dowel goods, all that stuff? I try and keep a working list in there of things I do to try and help anybody that's interested.
That's very cool.
You sound very disciplined with the plan that you have set in place. Is it hard to be patient and stick to that plan? That's
the hardest part. And I don't live at the ranch, so I can tell you I drive with great anticipation. I typically go every weekend. The weekends I don't go, where I haven't been there in 2 weekends, is just about enough to drive me crazy. We breed bulls year round, so a calf could be born anytime. So whenever I'm showing up, that's the first thing I want to go check, where any new baby's born. So it goes into that patience thing. You know, when you have a plan like this laid out for 2 or 3 generations, and then the worst part is it usually takes 3 or 4 years for each generation to grow up to know if you had success or if you're on the right path. So I hope I live to 125, and I might be halfway on my point for that.
So do you have advice for others who want to create the same sort of vision for their herd that you have or something similar to what you have?
You know, any advice that I would give you is there's a lot of people, I've heard experts say, man, you need the best bull you can. And I agree with that, but I can get the best bull I want for, $100 a straw, $300 a straw. To me, the difference was I want really strong females because I feel like they contribute more than 50% of their pedigree, and they decide more so the success of the babies. So I wanted, does anybody care about your 27th best cow? I would probably tell you no, unfortunately. They care about your top 3, 4, 5, 6. And every now and then you're going to have one in your top 10 or 20 really cross for you and hit, and those are worth talking about. But for the most part in this business, people want to talk about your best cows, and that's how they get to know your herd and you. So I would spend a lot of time thinking about surrounding yourself with the best productive genetics with horn set, conformation, body color that you can from the beginning. As everybody talks about, you make the mistake with a starter herd, but as you really get diligent and disciplined, find the cows you want to build your herd around, and then find the best crosses for them. And, once you have 2 or 3 of these kind of cows, you can do what I'm talking about, where you intertwine these genetics and really put you into potential super calves of your own.
So you mentioned before that, when you got started, you owed a lot to the Helm family. Who else has helped you along the way that you'd like to give credit to?
Mike Crawford was a big help. He's kind of what helped me get started. He has Red Peak Ranch. He's probably 10 minutes from our ranch. And he wrote an article in the Texas Trophy Hunters magazine about having cows eat down your grass allows more forbs and weeds to grow for the deer to get them. And I thought, hey, that's really cool. That was the first exposure or interest I had in hearing that. So that's what made me go from deer to considering longhorns, and realizing how independent they are for a guy that doesn't live there. So Mike was very helpful. Bob Loomis is a dear friend and has been very helpful. Have so many friends in this business that contribute with conversations, answer my questions, are patient with me. When you are really hot on the trail of an animal and understanding its genetics, there's a million questions that go with it. And sometimes I always felt like I was being a pest, but people have such patience with people that are obsessed with cows just like they are.
So along the path that you've kind of taken using your plan and throughout the years with your breeding program, what are some goals that you've already met from what's in your plan that you can share with us?
When I first started, to see Mercy and Mocha hit 90, even when they weren't in my program, was such a lofty goal at the time. And then to have Jam and Jenny hit 90. Now Awesome Nova's on her way. I bought AM Rose's Ruby. She just hit 90. To me, to see some of these, when I first got in this business in 2009, 70 was huge. And to think that in 10 years we've gone from 70 to basically 100. So it's crazy. But I saw these cows, when I first were acquainted with them, they were babies. So to see a baby calf go from nothing to 90, that to me is really special. It's a lot different if you buy a cow that's 85 and they hit 90. That's different. You already saw them at a very advanced stage. But I saw a lot of these ones as babies and watched them really extend out there. And now I'm watching it in some of these babies. Cracker Jack is a great example. That is really screwed over Jam and Jenny. He projects to upper 90s right now. He's tilted back. He was over 70 on his second birthday. He's already mid-80s. He has every chance to go from 95 plus inches. And that's exciting. So he has my brand on him. He came from this plan. He came from Jam and Jenny, which was one of these super cows, and now I'm having him breed all these cows. So all these calves that I'm about to have from him on some of these other babies, this will be the first really expressive step of two sides of the genetics crossing. So it's pretty exciting.
Brian, thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking some time to explain a little bit more of your plan. We know how detailed you are in your plan, but we hope everyone else can gain some more knowledge about creating a plan for their own herd. And I'm sure you'd be willing to talk with anybody at any point about developing a plan.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for all you do. You know, you guys have been the backbone of the administrative part of the whole industry and have watched it from infancy to now. So thanks for all you guys do.
Of course.
Thank you, Brian.
We enjoyed it.